sleepy sailors here? Like post-lunch Z's. It is real, right? I know the food was great. I had a hard time deciding what to eat. So I had a bit of everything, right? Well, that said, we are going to launch into another session 2 where we're going to be learning together and having conversations with our panels on stage. I understand that the further you get in the back of the room, the more comfortable you are. So hello, I can see you too. I hope you feel welcome and connected to us here on stage. But later we'll tell you how you can ask your questions as well. Now, first and foremost, for those of you who are still standing and conversing, thank you for the excitement. I appreciate your presence and energy. But let's settle down so we can start session 2, ladies and gentlemen, of Singapore Safety at Sea Conference 2024. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Carissa Seat. It's a pleasure to be back with you this year as your MC. We were just commenting that 1 year, 1 time, just nice, correct? Huh? Because we get together, we get to share stories, we've got some experience and perspectives, and so that's why this is an annual initiative brought to you by MPA. Now that said, we are talking about what? All hands on deck, safety first, right? So please give me your attention for a minute, and we'll go through a quick safety briefing. All right, so in the unlikely event of a fire or emergency, I trust we will be able to keep calm and orderly. Now, where are the exits? They are located right at the back of the ballroom. The same way you came in, we will go out the same way. We will have ground personnel who will take you all the way through the hotel lobby, turning left, and we'll go to the designated assembly area called the Tangling Walkway. So there's a name for this walkway. It's called the Tangling Walkway. We will assemble there and we will await for more instructions. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have done the safety briefing. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Now, the conference today is the first of a series of events. I heard it's going to be a very happening week of learning and connecting. It's part of the Singapore Safety at Sea Week, an annual initiative brought to you by Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore to promote sea safety or safety at sea. Now this year we're really excited, okay, that we have over 2,000 attendees coming through the doors and attending various events organized by MPA, the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council, and safety work groups, as well as co-located events. Just curious, how many of you are going for more events this week? Quick show of hands. Wow, look at that. Woo! So you guys are not just here, you're going to be doing more stuff this week. So it's great. I'm glad it's going to be a very, very eventful week for many of us, and of course, a great week of connecting and learning together. All right, so with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I just thought we should really do something about the post-lunch. So I wonder what do sleepy sailors do when you have work ahead, but you're feeling a little tired? What do you do on the ships? Sleep, Cannot. That one I cannot accept here. I cannot sleep, because our panel is like good to go. Do you talk to your friends? Maybe. Okay, so why don't we, session 2, right? So why don't we just maybe stand a little bit and just go nearby to the person next to you, find 2 new faces, and give them a high five. Say hello to them. Say hi, welcome. Just 2 will do. Do not go too far. Just next to you, say hello to 2 people. All hands on deck. Let's do this. All right, 2 is good, huh? Excellent, excellent. Okay, when you're done saying 2, thank you very much. You may be seated. I hope you feel energized by that connection in the room, yeah? All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You'll be pleased to know you can continue this connection that you have and conversation at tea break. Okay, so let's talk about what we are about to do, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in session 2 today, our panel is focused on talking all hands on deck for ammonia bunkering. So I think that came up earlier. We talking about methanol, and there were questions about ammonia, and then we said we'll bring those questions over. So this is a continuation from the past panel where you have some questions about ammonia bunkering. Now, earlier this year, as you can see on the picture, Singapore successfully conducted the world's first use of ammonia in combination with diesel in the combustion process as a marine fuel on board an ammonia-powered vessel in our port. Now, the successful conduct of this ammonia fuel trial on board the Fortescue Green Pioneer marks a significant milestone in Singapore's multi-fuel bunkering capability development to support the digitalization, decarbonization, and manpower development for international shipping. All right, so collective support was actually provided for such a trial to be carried out. It demonstrated the facilitative regulatory environment, strong research, tripartite ecosystem here in Singapore to support the conduct of such trials and scale up operations for new maritime fuels. So today we're very pleased that we have here on stage in a while MPA and her key partners to share about the milestone operation and the roles and considerations for safety. To convene this panel, I'm very pleased to be inviting our moderator, Captain Vibas Garg, to join us. He's Director of Octane Marine Private Limited and member of the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council. I hear some claps. You may, please. Captain Vibas, the stage or the ship is yours. But that's it. I'll be inviting his esteemed panelists to join us on stage. First, Mr. Niu Wei Xiang to join us. Mr. Niu, hi. He is the Director of Maritime Decarbonization and Net Zero Pathways for MPA. We also have with us Mr. Andrew Hoare to join us. He's the Head of Fortescue Marine Systems and Green Shipping. Welcome, welcome. Sure we have a lot to learn. Next, Mr. Glenn Davenport, welcome up. He's the Vice President for Operations and Technical of Vopak Terminals Singapore. Let's welcome him. Mr. Glenn Davenport. And finally, last but not least, Captain Muhammad Saleh bin Ahmad Sawan. Good to have you. He's Senior Lecturer and Specialist of Singapore Maritime Academy, Singapore Polytechnic. Our esteemed panelists, Captain Vibas, gonna throw the ball over to you. The time is yours.
Thank you, Carissa. And thank you for waking up the audience. This is my 4th year I'm moderating. Every year I get the graveyard shift. And thank you so much. Well, the good thing is that the topics that I do moderate on are pretty interesting. So I hope that you guys will take part and give us some questions. So in the session before lunch, we heard methanol, and we are quite a bit ahead with methanol. We have carried methanol as a cargo for a long time. What we are going to be talking about now is a slightly different beast. It's ammonia. The industry, when it comes to technology for burning ammonia on ships as a fuel, supply chains, global supply chains are a bit nascent at the moment, though of course there are plans to develop ships, build ships by next year. And MPA, or rather Singapore, has got developers who are giving them proposals for generation of for electricity as well as for bunkering ammonia fuel at Jurong Islands up to 100,000 tons per year, I believe. So it's basically out here in this country, in this small island nation, we put our money where our mouth is. We believe that the world should be carbon free by 2050, and we are doing everything possible with all hands on deck to make that possible. Gentlemen I have with me on the left here, they represent organizations who have made the first ammonia trials in Singapore possible. And the way we will go is that we have a few questions here for these gentlemen as to how this bunkering was made possible. And then I will invite the audience to put in their questions in the polls, and we'll go over some of those questions on Pigeonhole. So let's first start with a short presentation from each one of them on what they have done for these trials, starting with you.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Okay. Wei Xiang here from MPA. So now I will just quickly go through some of our efforts, right, on for ammonia bunkering. So this is just really a few quick slides to give an overview of MPA's efforts. Right. So next. So I mean, very broadly, the context. I think everyone here, or no, most of everyone here, would be familiar with the IMO revised GHG reduction strategy, right? So the targets are set out in the slide here, but basically what it's saying that international shipping should get to net zero by around 2050, right? With some intermediate or indicative checkpoints, right, in 2030 and 2040, with some emission reductions targets over there as well. Of course, in addition, it also says that the uptake of zero or near zero GHG emission technologies, fuels, or energy sources should represent at least 5%, right, or 10%, or striving for 10% of the energy used by 2030, right? So this 2030, which is actually not that far away already. Okay, next. So in shipping, I think most agree that, I think most experts will say that the maritime industry is heading for a multi-fuel transition. So this slide gives sort of an overview of where the various fuels are at, right, in terms of the timeline, in terms of its readiness, etc. Right, so at the beginning, we can see things LNG is likely to be a transition fuel, biofuels will likely to be around, but it's whether or not we have enough feedstock is a question. And for LNG to be truly sustainable in the future, I think some people are already starting to look at things like biomethane. Right? Methanol is really quite here and now already. Singapore has done a few operations on that. And today's, at least the focus of this panel is on ammonia. Right? I think this is where an area we can have quite a lot of discussion on, because not everything about ammonia is ready. Right, but yeah, this also holds a lot of potential and promise as a potential future maritime fuel. So I think this is where we see that it could be one of the most adopted maritime fuel in the mid to long term. So very promising. And lastly, of course, there's still hydrogen, but we all know the challenges with hydrogen in terms of how are we able to transport and store it economically. Okay, next. So what are MPA's efforts, right, in enabling a multi-fuel transition specifically for ammonia? Right, so in this slide, we can give just a very brief summary of all our efforts. We have joint industry projects that MPA is part of, things like a Castor Initiative, ITOCHU Consortium, etc. Standards development is quite important for us. We are part of working groups, right, to draft a technical reference for ammonia bunkering. We have many safety studies that's ongoing with our institutes of higher learning, research institutions. I think some of you are here today as well. We have been conducting emergency response tabletop exercises, right? You know, one notable example was the one that we did last year, right, between MPA, the Embassy of France, Indonesia, Norway, etc., with EU-supported funds, right? And lastly, I think many of you here will be familiar that MPA and EMA are also part of this doing this request for proposal to develop ammonia bunkering and power generation solutions on Jurong Island, right? So this is an area where we've just made some announcements recently on when that we have selected 2 consortia that progress with us to the next stage, right? So many very exciting developments on ammonia that MPA is working on right now. Next. Right, but so this is really one of the most exciting projects that I think we have done this year, right? They're actually using ammonia as a fuel, right? So the world's first use of ammonia as a marine fuel, right, in a dual-fueled ammonia-powered vessel in combination with other fuels, right, such as conventional fuels or HVO, right? So MPA did very extensive safety preparations for this trial. Those of you who have worked with us would know, right? We hands-on workshops, spent a lot of hours at the yard, right? Going through the details, technical details, looking at all the fittings, etc., going through all the drills with the seafarers, right? So a lot of safety preparations were done. Plume modeling as well. So this is where we're going to touch on a little bit more later on why we think plume modeling is quite important, right? And for us in getting ourselves prepared for ammonia, right? I think, okay, the last one was a bit covered. Yeah, but it's basically what this slide is just really trying to say is that for this trial, safety is it's the top of the mind definitely for MPA, given the nature of ammonia as a molecule, as well. This is really being the first time any of us are really using it as a fuel. Okay, next. The next slide. All right. So my last slide, I would just like to briefly highlight the Maritime Energy Trading Facility that MP has announced that we're establishing at the Singapore Maritime Week this year, in April this year. Right. So this is really an effort, right, for MPA together with many industry partners, about 22 industry partners. In fact, we've all come together to sign a letter of intent, right, to work on this together to set up the facility progressively by 2026. Right, the aim is to train around 10,000 seafarers, right, from now to the 2030s. Right, this is really based on feedback from a lot of our the seafaring community that I know they do need feel that they do need to gain the competency as well as the confidence to use ammonia as a fuel on board. Right, so this is also a very exciting initiative that we're working with industry partners on, and we hope that more partners will join us. Okay, I think this is my very brief overview on our efforts for ammonia. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you, Wei Shan, for that. My name is Andrew Horf. I'm from Fortescue, and I lead the green shipping side of the business. In case of emergency response today and difficult questions, I also have James Fenning in the crowd, who was actually the project manager for the Green Pioneer project. So I think hopefully we're safe here in terms of the questions that can get directed. It was an amazing project. It was basically a 2-year process, as is illustrated in this illustration here. 3 of our key partners are given nice branding because they're on the stage with me. The class involved just gets a small case mention within the timeline here, but we involved many other partners in this project overall. But what was interesting is, despite this taking 2 years from inception to the conclusion of the sea trials, actually our experience with ammonia started much before that. We were already working on ammonia in 2-stroke and 4-stroke engines, in locomotives, and so forth at the group. So our early development of ammonia has actually probably already now been over 4 to 5 years, which is in combustion circumstances. So I think that's given us significant credibility to build our position to do this project. And I think we also, not to always offend the oil companies, but it is not only the oil majors that have the preserve of process safety and understanding gases. Fortescue and all the miners, of course, are dealing with hazardous gases and other toxic chemicals throughout their operation as well. And I think because of that, we have very strong process safety in Fortescue, which enabled us to do this. Also, from an owning perspective, I don't think there's any owner that have the application integration technology to put all this sort of project together themselves. Engine manufacturers might look at engines and so forth. But I think where Fortescue were very different here is we pulled this whole thing together, building on the collaboration with the terminals, with the MPA, and the people as well through SMA to pull this project off. So it was a hell of an approach. But we actually started, it's a reverse amphibian project. It started on the land. We basically built out an engine test bed on the land in Perth using a marine engine, the same type of marine engine that we have on the ship as well. And so we did the initial testing down in Hazelmere in Perth, subject to the local regulations in Australia, DMERS and so forth. And we use a classification society there to accredit that engine. Through that process, we actually conducted the first burn in March 2023. That was the world's first burn of ammonia in a marine engine. And over the course of the next 6 months, we captured an enormous amount of data to understand what it means to burn ammonia. But proud of that, actually, and I actually joined just after this project started, I sort of imposed a safety stop because I didn't quite understand exactly what we were doing, whether we'd followed everything properly from a marine perspective. And we put in a stop. And I can say after doing that safety stop and the review, the only thing that was added was that the exclusion zone was added by about 5 meters. So I think that's testament to the rigor that was actually in place at the beginning of this project. But meanwhile, as Fortescue, we tend to move at pace. So we had a number of things on the go here. Number one, we didn't have permission to burn ammonia in Singapore. So that was an interesting conversation with the MPA, who I think probably at that time might have been a little bit more focused around methanol. So it was a case of, we're going to be burning ammonia in your port in sort of in the middle of 2023, maybe late 2023. I think the view was, but you're not quite ready for that. But then I think we then showed the MPA and various authorities here what we've been doing in Perth, both on West Australia and Perth, also our ammonia facility that we had, although it's mothballed on the East Australia as well. We showed that we had a strong understanding of ammonia, and I think that's been important all the way through this project. So to run through, because I've only got 5 minutes, I guess, is we did the world's first transfer with Vopak in March of this year, and then we concluded the sea trials through March and through April as well. So through this whole process, we learned so much through the commissioning. We were doing gas-free operations. We did the propulsion trials and all sorts of various other drills during this whole process. It was a very, very thorough process. I think we're very proud. You can see we're very proud with what we achieved. But I think just moving on to the next slide, I think some of the 4 messages I want to sort of convey today. Number one is ammonia is ammonia. Now that sounds quite obvious, right? But it's not toxic LNG, it's not LPG, and it's not a hydrocarbon either. It is ammonia. It has its own distinct properties. And I think, and I'm essentially more of a commercially minded person, with all the work that we do on ammonia, I can constantly see that it's always like it's LNG related or it's LNG contact terms or so forth. And I think we need to, as we move in this energy transition, recognize the unique properties of the renewable fuel that we are using. I think that's very, very important. It's been very important through our whole safety evaluation of this process. Safety by design is important. That's both design for operation and also design for response and interventions as well. I think we want to anticipate and we want to eliminate, and we have to start all this activity from the get-go. It's much more difficult to backfill safety at a later date. So I think obviously there are certain people that we need to listen to where we're in the design process of designing ships. Training and competency, of which we did an enormous amount of work with the SMA. Training for hydrocarbons has become a bit old hat. It's very routine. It's out there. It's been done for a long period of time. There was no training manual for ammonia. So chicken-egg situation. How do we do a bunkering transfer when we haven't got ammonia-trained people? So we worked with the MPA, with the SMA to develop an ammonia competency course in addition to the other approved courses for gas, both basic and advanced. So training is really, really important. And again, it has to be different. It's not the same old way of training. You've got to train people in a fuel type which is entirely different in property to perhaps the fuels that they've been used to operating on ships. That includes other gases as well. And most importantly, and that's one of the purposes of today and many of the forums that I've sort of spoken at with colleagues over the last few months, is shared safety. We're a commercial organization like many of us in here. We want to obviously maximize value to shareholders and so forth if you're listed. But ultimately, when it comes to safety, we have been, I think, very, very open with the shares that we've had across the industry to share the contextual experience to the wide industry. That's what today is about. And we will continue to do that before, on and on. I think over the last year, we've had nearly 2,000 people have visited the ship. We've had bespoke tours, taking through the engine, the fuel delivery system, the PPE, the human elements, and so forth. This is something that we've been willing to share to the industry to show actually that it is indeed possible to conduct ammonia as this new latest renewable fuel on ship. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Andrew. Glenn?
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Glenn Davenport, and I'm the
Presentation, please.
Vice President of the Vopak Singapore BU. Next slide, please. I'm fortunate enough to have 20 years' experience in this industry. I came from the front line, so I learned how to connect a hose and connect a marine loading arm. And then I've been fortunate enough to be promoted into senior operational roles across Australia, Malaysia, and now Singapore. A little bit about Vopak, managing and handling and storage of a broad range of chemicals, fuels, is what we do. We have a lot of experience in this area. Vopak has been around for 400 years, and so that 400 years of learning and development has gone into how we operate. We have a network globally of 76 terminals, and we're able to leverage on that experience managing and storing different products for different customers. We take a lot of our lessons learned across that network and build up and keep improving our processes, which I think is extremely important for any industry, that you have to learn, you have to develop. That's key and critical. In addition to that, all our terminals, there's 4 terminals in our portfolio, have been classified by the Singapore government as major hazard installations. And what that means is there is an additional layer of requirements put upon us to make sure that we as an organisation are able to clearly identify what the hazards are, especially when it comes to products such as ammonia. And not only can you identify those hazards, you can clearly articulate what the controls are, and then you're able to, on an ongoing basis, demonstrate that those controls are still in place. So that's really important when you're managing a product such as ammonia or any other type of fuel, regardless, that you have those sort of procedures, processes, assets in place. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is where we hosted the bunkering operation, and we're very grateful to both the MPA and Fortescue and the Singapore people for trusting us with this very important step. This is our Banyan terminal. This is located on Jurong Island. And I want to make it clear up front that we already store ammonia at this location. We're storing it now. It's designed to support the fertilizer industry. So the 10,000 cubic meter tank you see there and the jetty you see is existing, and we've got proven safety performance over at least 10 years of delivering or receiving ammonia across quite a broad time span. So the challenge was, what we're asking for in this initiative is basically a new mode of operation. So the design that we have in front of you now is designed to receive by ship, ship to tank, tank to facility, or tank to truck. That's what it's designed to do. With this initiative, we then need to now deliver tank to ship. So that means that we need to look at our whole process and make sure that we can do that safely. Next slide, please. So to deliver on that success, we need to then consider 3 key areas. First being people. Our people already have demonstrated and have been signed off as competent for those other 3 modes that I just described. Right? Ship to tank, tank to facility, tank to truck. Now we need to then sign them off as competent from tank to ship. So there's a new process that needs to go in place. So we have to make sure our people are competent, and we have to make sure that our management are in there to sign off that everyone's ready to go. On the process side, we have to make sure that we have new SOPs. We move away from unloading with a marine loading arm. We move to loading with a hose. So we have to make sure all our guys are familiar and signed off on that SOP, and that also we're doing HAZOPs and hazards to make sure any new hazards are identified and we have those controls in place. So that's extremely important that all the levels of the organisation and all our partners are at the table to make sure that we have a full cross-range of industry experience to make sure that those processes are safe. On the plant side, it's always Vopak's philosophy to design safety at the front end. So you are endeavouring to try and design and engineer out as much of the human failure as you can. So when you're looking at the plant, we have to look at it a little bit differently because now we're introducing a new mode of operation. But from a plant perspective, We're able to then drill down exactly what the new parts of that plant are going to look like, but the existing controls are in place and proven, so it makes it safe from the very front end. Next slide, please. So globally, Vopak wants to support this energy transition. And to support these new modes of operation, we then need to revisit our handling and storage guidelines. That's very important that we look back at it, we look at new modes of operation, we have to review it. And in the Netherlands, where our head office is, they've co-chaired that process to look at the handling and storage guidelines, to look at where we need to update it, inviting all the industry leaders to the table to review those, and we are really pleased to be involved in that, and we think that's a responsible thing to do as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Saleh, 1 second, Saleh. Just a little bit, guys. There's not a single question posted as yet. Now, I will not leave this panel till I see some questions. So if you think you're going for tea, it will not happen. So please use your fingers and post the questions. And also, there is a poll somewhere here, which I'm going to flash up very soon. There are only 14 votes from more than 100 people sitting out here. It's a question very similar to what was asked in the morning on methanol. Same question. But do give me your answers for that. Thank you. Saleh?
Thank you, Captain Vivas. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Captain Muhammad Saleh from Singapore Maritime Academy. I'm a senior lecturer and specialist, and today I'm honored to be here, to be part of these panelists, to take a look at the ways forward with regard to new fuel, particularly in the area of ammonia. So on the first slide, you can see what Singapore Maritime Academy is. I think it's a bit too small. Just to give you a brief introduction about Singapore Maritime Academy. We started maritime education and training in Singapore back in 1957. Currently we are running various programs in the area of pre-employment training as well as continuing education and training. We also do run a program which are specially tailor-made for industry. One such example is the work that we have done with Fortescue before the ammonia bunkering took place. I think everybody is aware that the whole world is moving towards sustainability. And maritime industry is also part of that whole initiative. And there are many type of future fuel that has been identified. And this afternoon we'll be looking more towards the ammonia part. All right. As you see on this slide, there is rising demand for sustainable fuel, and I think ammonia is one of them. There are many other alternatives available. I think Wei Xiang has also introduced to the various type, and ammonia has bring a lot of will be bringing a lot of environmental benefit, but it also poses some challenges which the panel will be looking at later part of this afternoon. Next slide, please. Okay, I think the font is not very clear. Currently what we are doing, I think many of us are aware, there are many initiatives currently is taking place at global level in many areas of alternative fuel. Ammonia is one of them. The Maritime Just Transition Task Force, locally there are also working groups working on developing a technical reference as mentioned by Wei Xiang. So there are many initiatives which is taking place. On our part at SMA, curriculum development is an ongoing process. You can see from the historical record that when new initiatives were introduced, we have been actively participating in that. Many years ago when LNG first introduced into the market, Captain Verdi is sitting among us today, and we were involved, and Captain Verdi was very much involved in that. Methanol, as mentioned by Captain Chatuwayu, my director this morning, that we have mounted program at basic as well as advanced level that trains staff who is going to work on methanol related vessel, and we have so far trained about 200 over personnel on that. So I think similar model will take place within SMA, working closely. We are not alone here. We are working closely with MPA as well as industry stakeholders to come up with a program when certain maturity has taken place within the industry in the area of ammonia bunkering. As I mentioned, it is a collaborative effort. It is not SMA alone. There are many people in the industry working with Fortescue. We were fortunate enough to leverage on the experience of Fortescue to curate a program which is relevant for them to make sure that their personnel are ready. Our colleagues are also sitting in many working group, task forces and all that, that provide us with the opportunity not only to contribute, but also to take back the learning point from all this group discussion and all that, so that we can curate a program which is specially tailor-made for the industry, what the industry want, and based on the discussion that takes place at various forums. So we were happy to announce that since October till March this year, October 2023 to March 2024, we have trained 35 personnel from Fortescue, and the program was actually jointly curated with Fortescue, tailor-made for them. Next slide, please. Working forward, we will continue to develop the program. I think there is also opportunity for us to leverage on some of the technology that we could use in the delivery of the program. So the design, development, and delivery, not only face-to-face in class, but it's going to include practical. For example, methanol firefighting was there. So in the future, there is a plan to also incorporate similar model in developing this program. We were fortunate that we have 10 schools in the Polytechnic that we can work with in various areas that the maritime industry would require. And also our partners from Center of Excellence in Maritime Safety, they have developed several AR, VR package, which has been used for LNG. We have used it for methanol, and hopefully in the future, the same technology can be used in delivering courses for the ammonia. And we are also fortunate that Singapore, being a community where the whole maritime industry is working like a family, we are happy that we get a lot of support coming from the various stakeholders that has interest in this area. Next slide, please. So I think the slide here indicate the call for action. Somehow the dark background is not showing here, but let me just highlight to you what is on this slide. So basically, the call is for all of us to collectively participate in the development of safety standard for ammonia bunkering. It is a new area that we hope that we can work together as a community that is very much interested in the safety. The second thing is to promote knowledge sharing among all of us. Okay, there are many things that many pockets of knowledge which residing at different places. So hopefully we can come together and collaborate and come up with a very robust curriculum that will prepare our seafarers better for the future to operate future fuel. So together we can ensure a safer, more efficient, and sustainable future for the maritime operation. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. time is limited, so let me just straight away jump into the questions. And the first one is probably suited to the occasion from the audience. What are the safety conditions that must be taken into account before supplying ammonia as a bunker? And considering the safety of ammonia, etc., why did we even consider it as an alternative fuel? Maybe Glenn, you can start with all your chemical background.
Cool. Yeah, so I think, well, of course, the considerations are related to the most probable incident that would occur would be a release, and that release would be probably in the most likely location would be a flange to flange. And I think that's really important, and then how our people respond to that and how quickly they can respond to that. So how fast they can respond to that kind of leak, it really is critical, because you can really reduce the risk factor. So your people's capability to respond, the right equipment that is available to them, I think that's really important. And to reinforce what I said earlier, those processes, that competency, that equipment is already existing today, because we are safely managing ammonia as it goes. Where the gap we need to address is on the vessel side. Whether the people on the vessel side have an understanding that they are now operating with ammonia rather than their historical fuels that they might be getting used to managing. Why ammonia? Because globally, as a people, our ambition is to decarbonize. And there's a few contenders. I'm an infrastructure guy, right? So I have to be careful what I say, because of my customers are across all industries. But ammonia is offering a solution around decarbonisation. It's one of two or three options, and so I think that is why it is also molecules that there's already been quite a bit of investment and research done on the engine side. So this is why this molecule is really leading in that area. That would be how I'd respond to that, yeah.
Thanks, Glenn. I think that's very informative, yes. Let me just get a little bit of perspective from Andrew on why Fortescue actually embarked on this project, and what were your safety credentials around ammonia when you did this?
I think the fundamental reason we embarked on the project is because we're no normal mining group. I think our pride in what we're doing, what we're seeking to do, our stretch targets to decarbonize our operations are well communicated. I won't go too far in those today, but I think, as I said in the early intro speech, as a significant mining group, we have a very, very strong process safety mindset. We have enormous structures in our mining operations, both at the mines, at the ports, at Port Hedland, and so forth. So we have a very, very good understanding of how to apply safety to significant projects. The problem we face is we need to decarbonize our shipping routes fundamentally, and there was nobody really there who was willing to take a holistic approach in order to do that. You had an engine manufacturer who was maybe going to go and test some ammonia in an engine. You had, in fact, nobody had even been talking about fuel delivery systems. You had sort of people saying, well, we can build a project to produce ammonia, but nobody was looking to say, well, actually, how can we integrate it from a test engine into a ship? And I think that's where Fortescue, basically, we applied foresight to that, backed up by our strong process safety credentials, backed up by industry partnerships, to apply that knowledge and skill into into this project. With us as well, we're putting hydrogen and other sort of gases into our decarbonisation train on shore as well, and that also requires a completely new set of of skills that we have, maybe even as a group ourselves, don't yet have. But as we're doing that, as we're developing our ammonia projects, hydrogen projects, and so forth, we're bringing that skill and rigor into our process safety. Again, as I said before, process safety is not the exclusive domain of the oil companies. Many other large industrial groups have it, and ours, our own, is no exception. So that's really what I think gave us the credentials to do that, was to have that foundation, and the fact that we started working with it on the trains. We did the land-based test beds. We did it in accordance with class. We chose a great port and a flag state of which to do it here in Singapore with DNV as well. So I think all these ensured it wasn't just us doing a solo run, enormous amounts of intrusion, oversight, partnership, cooperation, of course, with people as well. I think basically enabled us to deliver this project. So it's no single person, but I would say it might have been Fortescue's vision to get this done, which is why we're ahead of the pack.
Thanks, Andrew. Let me go to Wee Siang on the tremendous collaboration that MPA had with Fortescue and other parties, quite evident here. But for the trials in this Fortescue Pioneer test, why did you choose to incorporate the dispersion modeling, and how did you actually make the trials safer for this? I'm sure you must have had a lot of resistance from various agencies in Singapore.
Yeah, so I think the short answer for why we did modeling is also is really because we need to know what can possibly happen, right, if something goes wrong, right? And if something goes wrong, where should how should the seafarers react, right? Under the various scenarios that the modeling results tells us, how should the emergency responders react? Right, and all this also gives us information on if we look a bit more upstream, what precautions should we be taking in the first place, right, to address some of these effects that we can see based on the modeling. So it's a bit of an iterative process, but the modeling does give us a lot of insights into how the trials, for example, with the Fortescue was carried out. For instance, the safety radiuses, right? Like for where all the vessels, were positioned. If you look at the photo just now, we could see some NPA vessels, or other government agencies' vessels all positioned around the Fortescue Green Pioneer and things like that. All these were all the results of careful and detailed modeling and analysis, right? We modeled based on real-time data, etc., just to take account the conditions as accurate as possible. Hence, we believe that short of actually something actually happening, which we all don't want, modeling gives us the next best in terms of a sense of what can possibly happen if something goes wrong, and what the precautions hence we need to take to address some of these issues upfront. I think Singapore or MPA believes that for all new fuels or new alternative fuels, modeling is a critical step that we should all take, right, to better understand the safety precautions that we must take. And we have also submitted a paper, right, for the upcoming IMO CCC meetings in September, right, and hopefully you can generate some discussion there at the IMO as well. And hopefully the other member states will also see that this is a valuable tool that we can all adopt as we move forward in the alternative fuels bunkering.
Thank you, Wee Sing. Something which you alluded to, Glenn, was about people on the ship actually knowing the hazards of ammonia and being able to. I mean, I know we've all carried ammonia, the tanker people, but what happens? How are the engineers going to handle it when it's going to be bunkered? And I think, let me ask this question from you, Saleh. What is it that you are actually doing to develop a curriculum for ammonia? Because I remember from my ship management days when we were looking around for people who could bunker LNG, it was difficult to take over a ship which had LNG dual fuel, right? So ammonia seems to be long distance away. What are you doing to develop that curriculum?
Okay, I think earlier we all are aware that ammonia is not new. It has been carried as cargo before. However, the challenge today is going to be different because people who are working on specialized carrier, they are quite familiar with the risks and hazards associated with ammonia. But what happened is one day a container ship is going to be fueled by ammonia. So the people may not be ready in the area. So our interest in SMA is to equip our global seafarer to be ready to operate vessel which is going to operate in totally different environment compared to the conventional type of vessel. So, of course, curriculum development is one of the areas that we are actively involved in collaboration with MPA as well as various stakeholders. That is the first thing that we want to do. And then the other one is training could involve something which could leverage on what the trainee could benefit from through the use of various methods like infusion of IT, AI, VR, and all that, which, as I alluded earlier, there is a possibility for us to develop that based on our close collaboration with our colleague from Center of Excellence in Maritime Safety. In developing some of these areas, perhaps the involvement of other schools may be something that we can leverage on. Research and innovation is another area that we could be involved in. And I think most important thing is to raise awareness to the general population, particularly in the maritime domain, where people need to be aware of some of the challenges that ammonia can pose. Even though it is something that the industry is looking forward to in trying to achieve our decarbonization effort, but we need to be aware that there are certain challenges that needs to be taken care of. This can be achieved through a rigorous development of curriculum that combines the use of knowledge as well as the way how the knowledge is transmitted through practical exercises, simulation exercises, the use of various new technologies. There may be possibility of online learning where we could develop. I think we are also pushing the envelope for methanol to be delivered in an online manner, which is currently we are already developing. So these are some of the things that we are doing currently.
So let me ask you a question, Wei Sing. If some owner was to build a ship, ammonia-powered ship, delivery in 2 years, and comes to Singapore for registration, what would you advise that owner to do in terms of manpower recruitment or regulations? Because today IGF code doesn't specify. We've got no regulations on this. How do we go about it?
Right. So I think in the regulations space, I think at the international level, at IMO level, I think yes, the IGF code doesn't specify today, but hopefully we'll get some interim guidelines on that quite soon. Then that will provide general guidance for the rest of the world. But I think as evidence from the Fortescue Green Pioneer trial, Singapore is prepared, right, to move ahead with like-minded, committed partners. Right, and we will do so, and we'll move forward on that basis as well as bring the resources that we have on hand to support such trials. I think just based on the experience we had with Fortescue, we can see that for any trial, we'll come in, NPA will come in. We will not only come in alone, we will bring in the rest of the relevant government agencies in Singapore, like NEA, SCDF, etc. We'll help to organize them. We'll do all the heads-up workshops together so that we all have a common view of all the risks that's involved, as well as what's needed, right, to minimize those risks. We also do things through modeling, for example. We'll work with bringing our IHLs as well, right, to help us with some of these more specialized areas. And we will go down with you, right, to the yard and etc. to really work on some of these teething issues where actually there's really we're all learning together. And of course, last but not least, I think familiar that Singapore has developed a network of green and digital shipping corridors. I think this is also where a platform for us, right, to also help to see what's the best practices that can possibly out there in the world today, right? Then all this will help us to inform some of the measures that we will take. So what I want to assure the industry is, of course, I mean, for all the alternative fuels trials, I think Singapore stands ready to help you, to support you in a way that we can, and also in a very safe way, right? Because as you know, in Singapore is a small country, very dense, congested port, that safety is definitely at the top of our minds, right? And whenever we do all these trials, and we have our assurance that we will want to work with you on this journey together.
Thank you, Wes. When I'm asking next question, can you just put up the poll that we had a question very similar to what we had for methanol in the morning. So that was asked from all of you, and I think I've got sufficient answers here. While that is put up, okay, there it is. I can see it here. We've got pretty much similar answers to the morning, which says people-related stuff. Yeah, something that Saleh has already addressed. But I see very few talking about availability of fuel. So is ammonia available as a fuel, alternative fuel today, Glenn?
Yeah, I think there's already global flows now moving around. Obviously,
Green ammonia.
I'm not sure on the green ammonia, but yeah, ammonia as a product is flowing now, and I think that there's going to be probably a competitive space in there between the existing industry, but definitely I think that's one of the reasons why it's a leading solution, is because its availability.
Oh, I see. Okay. There is, since we are comparing this methanol, there is a question which has got a lot of votes. In terms of balancing sustainability and safety, which one is better, methanol or ammonia? Who takes this?
I'll take this.
Okay.
I don't think you need to make a choice between the two. I think you can safely handle ammonia as long as you have the right design. Your people are competent and your processes are in place. I don't think there needs to be a decision between the two, a trade-off between the two. I think that's we've already, as I said, and maybe at the top of the process. Yeah, this is a material that we've all got a lot of experience in managing. I think there is some very responsible people sitting on the stage now that make sure that not only are we talking about it, we actually prove it through an initiative such as what we've performed. So I don't think that's we need to trade off between the two. I think we can have our cake and eat it.
Okay, Andrew, you seem to be.
I think since you've encouraged a little bit of a commercial interlude, I think the biggest risk with methanol is availability, and I think the biggest risk is that people are ordering methanol carriers, but with full intention to probably never burn methanol in them. So I think from a risk perspective, I think probably people who are embarking on the ammonia journey are fully intending to use that carbon-free fuel. And I think that is a big fundamental nuance between those two fuels. I think the availability of fuels and so forth is by and large beyond the scope of this discussion, but I think the end game needs to be the elimination of carbon because of all the other issues that it presents to the environment. And I think, again, the worst scenario is somebody who orders all these methanol ships. It looks very, very, very good, but they continue to burn the hydrocarbon because the methanol is not available or it's too expensive or so forth, then it's served absolutely no purpose whatsoever apart from greenwashing.
Thank you. Yeah, but then of course is it completely all the carbon gone? What about the pilot fuel that we are burning with ammonia?
Again, I think there are probably some engine manufacturers in the room here. You can see that applying the appropriate technology with a combustion ammonia, you will reduce emissions by 90%, and that's just on the capability which is now being proven ourselves today. So I think obviously we all know that the next stage will be how do we eliminate and to get that next 10%, and that's going to be reducing or eliminated the use of pilot fuel and ammonia. So I think all of this sets a very, very good trigger in that direction. Having said that also, we use in our test HVO, hydrogenated vegetable oil. That is essentially, from an accounting perspective, a carbon-free fuel as well. So there are nuances to, say, blend HVO with ammonia and then get an even better outcome than the 90%.
Okay. And this is a very persistent question, earning many, many, many votes. What are the views of the panel regarding SIMOPS for ammonia bunkering? And are SIMOPS possible? If so, what is the limit on number of SIMOPS that can be factored into the planning? SIMOPS, is it too early to talk about SIMOPS?
It's absolutely key. I think putting on, again, a commercial hat, if we don't work and strive towards SIMOPS for the use of ammonia, we're not following the right path. I think we all recognize that the first leap may not be to SIMOPS, but I want to use the analogy. When you climb on a plane and somebody says over the tannoy, could you please unfasten your seatbelts? We're currently loading some fuel onto the plane. Now that looks pretty relaxed and pretty casual. Well, that's a product of great design. And so ultimately, we have to look at SIMOPS as the end game that we want, and then we work back, I think, as Glenn said earlier as well. I also said that design is absolutely critical. So everything that we do today should be looking towards SIMOPS. It's clearly going to be a journey, shorter ship to ship, SIMOPS as well. But I think in order for Singapore, for example, to be competitive, they're going to have to be able to enable SIMOPS to occur earlier. But having said that, it's, again, we know that operating an ammonia terminal or a terminal such as Vopak, I'm sure, is highly complex. It's, as he said, it's a hazardous area and so forth. You've got ammonia terminals today in existence. So you're essentially, when you're looking at SIMOPS, you're effectively becoming more or less like a container terminal. It's almost a little bit like an ammonia terminal, and it's relatively straightforward to build in those systems. There are not particularly many people operating around those sites. You can have your refuge zones, but the number one thing you have to do, going back to design, is you're eliminating the chance of vapor release. And if you work really, really hard at that at the design phase, that is going to be the one enabler from my perspective, our perspective, to enable that SIMOPS to be advanced. But it has to happen because we ultimately know there are commercial pressures on shipping. But today we're doing SIMOPS with LNG, with ore carriers in Singapore, which are coming here to bunker, not to discharge cargo. So it has to be the way forward. It has to be the path that we find a way to get to. That's from the ship side and from the cargo side.
I agree. I think it's probably related to maturity milestones. So you would hit one or two key milestones where you could demonstrate that we had it fully in control, that whatever we had committed to from a people, process and plant side was operating as per expectation. And then once you'd proven that as an industry, then you would take the next step, which is to consider multiple operations at the same time.
Okay, one last question that I'm sure a lot of engineers in the room have asked. How do we deal with the toxicity concerns for an ammonia leakage in the enclosed spaces of an engine room? Rather, one similar question is, how large is the affected area? And do we have any countermeasures today in place?
Look, for me, I don't own Green Pioneer, but I think the first and always, in my view, response should be, as much as possible, you have some sort of sensors, some sort of detectors in those locations that give you an early heads up that there's something in there that you need to be mindful of. And then in addition to that, you need to make sure that you have the right PPE response plans, etc., to then to move into that space safely to rectify whatever the issue will be. In my experience, the challenge is always how to identify where the source of the leak is or the actual issue itself. In my experience, that's probably the biggest challenge. Once you get to the scene, how you then make those assessments. But again, we already have quite a bit of capability in this area, and regardless of the size of the space, we can put in safety features to ensure that people are safe while they're making that initial assessment.
Thank you, Glenn. I am looking at the clock. Time is running out, so I'm going to give you guys 1 minute each to kind of summarize, from your perspective, any thoughts on ammonia as a fuel in shipping, and if there are any lessons that we can learn from other fuels. Start from Saleh.
Coming from the training side, I think contribution towards the development of the curriculum, design, development, and finally delivery of the curriculum that relates with ammonia should come from all of us. All of us sitting here and beyond this room, I think we got to work closely together. Just like the example we use working with Fortescue, it is not only SMA developing the curriculum, but we work very closely with the industry. So I think as a community, we have to work together. I think the end game, or the goal, is to make sure that our seafarers, not only locally, but globally, is ready to work with whatever future fuel is going to be introduced in the market by making sure that they are ready, they are prepared, they could contribute safely to the operation on board ship. Carrying ammonia as cargo and using ammonia as fuel may have some differences and nuances that people need to be aware of.
Thank you.
Yep.
Glenn?
Yeah, no, thanks for everyone for coming, and I appreciated the chance to share our views. I think Singapore is in a very unique position. I think we're already bunkering a large volume of vessels now, and I think we should really leverage on that opportunity. I think these alternative fuels are coming. That will probably, you could say, they're already here, and as an industry we need to embrace. And I know that it's a change. I know that it's different to how we operate now, but I think with trusted partners such as Vopak, we can really facilitate that change and move into that space in a very safe way, and making sure our people of Singapore are safe, but also have the prosperity of these new opportunities.
Thank you, Glenn. Andrew?
I think that there's only one place on the planet that this test could have happened, and that actually is in Singapore, under the Singapore flag state. I think what's important, though, with all this, safety is critical, but we mustn't build layers of safety. We have regulations being put up by the IMO. They then go down to class, who then add on more regulations and so forth. So our ship has 6 fuel fire systems on it. We've got to make sure that everything related to safety is relevant to ammonia. As I said, ammonia is ammonia. Don't build in an overlay of safety just to carry every single eventuality, because it will not be safer. We can see that with the use of PPE, with the use of fire detection and so forth, and you can grab James after the session and ask him much more detail about that. But to me, is to make sure that safety is design-led, people-led, and absolutely fit for purpose and fit for ammonia, not fit for everything.
Thanks, Andrew. See?
Right, just to quickly summarize, I think I would just say in terms of like 3 ABCs, right? I think first we still need to have some alignment out there on how do we deal with ammonia, right? Is it 5 ppm, 10 ppm, 20 ppm, 30 ppm? Is it AGR 1, 2, or 3? I think these are some things that I think the whole world still needs to have some alignment on exactly how do we want to treat ammonia and deal with ammonia safely. Number 2 is buy-in. I think most, if not all, everybody in this room understand why we need to move to why ammonia is an option, right? But certainly outside of this room, not everybody will believe in ammonia, right? So we still need to work at it, raise awareness that the ammonia is a safe fuel that can be used for maritime as a fuel for shipping. And C, I think we need cooperation, right? Everywhere, there are a lot of lessons and learned everywhere in the world right now through trials, studies, etc. We do not know, everybody is learning something new every day. So it's absolutely essential for us to cooperate, to collaborate, to share lessons with one another, so that we can collectively, right, make the use of ammonia as a marine fuel a safer one for everybody. Right, thanks.
Thanks, Wei Sing. Well, in conclusion, I have to thank all these gentlemen for their wonderful presentations and their thoughts. In my personal opinion, I think ammonia is around the corner. By 2050, it form a large percentage of the decarbonization fuel, and it will serve us all to be all hands on deck to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Bibas and our panelists. We'd like to invite you now for group photo taking. So just ask of our gentlemen here on stage to stand. You can leave your files and computers on the chair first. So I'll leave it to our good hands of our official photographer. So big smiles. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our panelists and Captain Vibas for taking us through that conversation together. I do trust that you got some gems of wisdom along the way, but that said, we appreciate your participation. That made a huge difference to have your questions. We'd now like to get a minute of your time to do a quick survey, or feedback rather, of what you enjoyed from the earlier panel session, this session, and what you'd like to see more of. So you can scan the QR code there. It's a very quick one, a couple of 5 or 6 questions, and probably 30 seconds to a minute of your time. Thank you for taking time to scan. As you can see, this year we've actually incorporated some of the previous year's feedback, and so every year we want to be able to iterate something that's relevant for the maritime industry. And in a while, we're actually headed for tea break just after you're done with the feedback form. So just a couple of things to note. We will be turning the room around, which means that we need everybody to exit the room once we close this session, and to bring your belongings with you. You will have tea break just outside up till 3:30, where you can enjoy, conversations and coffee, tea, but also to visit the Safety Showcase by Centre of Excellence in Maritime Safety and WSH Council. All right, so judging from the energy, many of you have probably done some of the feedback form already. We appreciate it. Thank you. So this wraps up session 2. We'll see you back here in the room if you've signed up for session 3 at 3:30, where we talk about people's safety and well-being. Enjoy your well-deserved break. We'll see you later. Thank you.